Good evening, everyone, and thank you all so much for joining me. I'm here tonight with Lisa Scottoline, who needs no introduction, but I'm going to give her one anyway. So Lisa Scottoline is the New York Times best-selling author of 32 novels. She has 30 million copies of her books in print in the United States and has been published in 35 countries. Scottoline has also writes a weekly column with her daughter for the Philadelphia Inquirer. Lisa has served as president of Mystery Writers of America and has taught a course she developed, Justice in Fiction, at the University of Pennsylvania Law School, her alma mater. She lives in the Philadelphia area, and as a reminder, we are still taking personalization requests for Lisa's latest book, What Happened to the Bennetts, and it makes a great Mother's Day or Father's Day gift or birthday gift, or if there's just someone you like and you want to get something nice for them. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Lisa. Lisa, thanks for being here with us today.
Drew, I am so happy to be here, and I love you, and I love Town Book Center, my local neighborhood bookstore. It's a wonderful independent. Everybody from my area knows how great it is, but I'm really hoping that, well, first, thank you all for being here, but I hope that you will think about getting a book, because I will sign it and personalize it. It does make a great gift, but most importantly, it supports a great independent bookstore. I'm a big fan of indies, and I think we need bookstores in our neighborhoods. So I know there's lots of ways to get a book, but this is a bookstore that is incurring the expense of putting this on and advertising it and make sure it's there for you. And so I want to be there for them, and I hope you will be too. It really matters for democracy. That's what I truly believe. So, well, this is fun. I'm glad you're here. What I'm going to do is talk for about 20 minutes and hopefully keep it fun and lively, because you know me, fun and lively is my middle name. I wear this incredibly loud scarf to wow, okay. And what I thought I would do is I'm not going to read to you because What Happened to the Bennetts is out and you can read. What I'm going to do is tell you the stuff you might not know, or the kind of stuff that I was trying to do in the novel, or where I got the idea for it. And then we'll open it up to questions, which Drew will handle because I'm not competent to do that. Where to begin? Well, first, let me talk to the people who I'm sure that some of you are not new to me, and thank you for your loyalty. I know, though, happily, that I have a lot of new readers since Eternal. And Eternal looks like a different book. I'm going to show it to you because you know what I'm talking about. Eternal's out in paperback now, and you got Town Book Center has copies, which I will also sign and personalize. But Eternal was my first foray into historical fiction, because it's America and we like things in categories. And I'm not complaining about that. I get it. But all my life I've written, I think I started writing because I just wanted to see strong, fun, independent women like me, and basically every woman I know, in the lead for a change. So and we all grew up honestly on Nancy Drew. So one way or another, we're writing Nancy Drew, at least I am. So when I started I guess I've had 30 years, and thanks to your support, book to book, writing, whether they're called legal thrillers or domestic thrillers. This is what people call them. Not me. I call them stories, usually about women and about certain themes. And so I'll come back to that. When all this time, though, I had wanted to write a book about what happened in Rome during fascism, because one of my themes besides family is justice. And I sort of always, we have this old time idea that law leads to justice. And sadly, now we know that isn't always the case. Sometimes law doesn't lead to justice. Sometimes law will thwart justice. And then there's the really interesting times where law will actually enact injustice. And I was always interested in that, as Drew was nice enough to point out. I taught that course. And when that happens, in particular, the best example of it is what happened under fascism in Mussolini's time, because they made an array of anti-Semitic laws, which I don't think a lot of people knew about. And basically, nowadays they didn't, but these laws were enacted and they were discriminatory, and they basically enacted injustice against the Jews of Rome, which, horribly enough, is the oldest continuously existing Jewish community in Western civilization. And when I learned about them, this sort of really true event that occurred during that time, I was like, surely somebody's going to write about this. And I'm watching year to year to year. I'm just taking you back a little bit and going, I guess I was going to write about this. And then at some point, I'm like, I'm going to write about this. Oh, and basically, but I have to admit, I felt a little worried because I hadn't before. And also because my category was thriller, legal thriller, domestic thriller, thriller lady, as Drew was nice enough to say, as president of Mystery Writers of America. Well, what are you doing writing historical fiction? And then I finally did it. And it was such a wonderful thing. But I will tell you secretly not so secretly, that's a bit of a career risk. People expect you to give what they want. They come to you for a reason. They want, a thriller, and you're giving them Mussolini's Italy. And I think it's a pretty fast moving novel, but it's not about one family. It's about three, and it's not present day. It's about 1930s Rome. And what I learned from doing that first is I have amazing readers, and thank you, because first of all, I read all my reviews online, every single one, every day. I know. I don't apologize for it. I care what you think. And a lot of those reviews would say, gee, I don't really read historical fiction, but I like her and I really love this book. Okay, that's the best thing. That's a gift to an author. And as a person, that's the best gift you can give anybody. So after I did that, I kind of wanted to go back to thrillers. I was never not gonna. So I start to write What Happens to the Bennetts and why all of this matters for present purposes. And here's what happened to the Bennetts. This is what it looks like. You can see, not historical fiction, right? Looks thrillery. And, oh shit, I'm sorry, that's my brother. Sorry, I cursed. And what I realized in going from Eternal to What Happened to the Bennetts is that though these genres are different, historical fiction to thriller, these are really distinctions without a difference. It's the dichotomy between form over substance. Because really, this is a long way of saying, if you're new to me and you liked Eternal, you're going to love Bennett's. Because the fact is, I am just telling you from the horse's mouth, having done it after 30 years in books and 30 some books, that it doesn't matter where the book is set and it doesn't matter when the book is set. It only matters what the story is and what the themes are. And thematically, Eternal and What Happened to the Bennetts are very, very similar. In What Happened to the Bennetts, so now I'll tell you a little about What Happened to the Bennetts. What happened to the Bennetts is, this is the pitch. This is what the idea I had, and I'll tell you the idea, where I got the idea. A family's driving home, typical family, conventional family, husband, wife, 2 kids in the back seat, and a little dog. Gotta have a dog. And they're driving home from the daughter's field hockey game. And all of a sudden, they're getting carjacked, and the dad's driving, and they're driving a new car. It's a new Mercedes. And they're like, oh no, like our Mercedes is uh-oh, what's this about? And the next thing you know that happens is they're carjacked. And the carjacking goes horribly, horribly wrong. And they find themselves, their whole lives turned upside down. And long story short, they're in the witness protection program. Now, beyond that, I'm not going to reveal. Because there's a lot of twists and turns on this book. In fact, I should have mentioned it was picked as People Magazine Book of the Week, which is completely exciting. And so I'm not going to tell you more, but I am going to tell you sort of thematically what's happening. And the idea as where it came from before we start talking about theme is just from me getting tailgated one day on the same street where this person was tailgated. I changed the name of the street. For you local people, we're in Pennsylvania now, in Chester County, where I live. They're driving along a street. I named it Coldstream Road because I love that. And there is a Coldstream Road already, but it's not the Coldstream Road. And they're going through a part of the woods that is zoned to protect, the natural spaces, which is kind of what happens in the suburbs out here. And I think the suburbs everywhere. And I was getting tailgated. And, a lot of books come out of what if. And I just was like, first of all, I hate tailgaters. So that bothers me. Usually I'll move over, but on this one line stretch, you can't. There's not that much room. So I said, that's the next book. And then it occurred to me too, just as our trick of the trade is that we're supposed to show you and not tell you when I'm writing. I'm not supposed to show, I'm supposed to explain the situation and explain the characters. You're not supposed to really spell it out. And I never do because people are smart. But I said, this is interesting because how you respond to a tailgater tells something about you, right? Like there are people who are, and that's what happens in the car. Jason Bennett is driving the car. His wife's on Facebook because she They just got back from a field hockey game. I'm imitating her. I don't know why. She's putting pictures up of the daughter who's played the field hockey game. The son's in the back. She's like, honey, let's get home. She's a little task oriented, like me a little bit. She's like, as soon as we get home, we got to let the dog out. We got to get the dinner. I got to make some phone calls. She works. She has a photography studio. She wants to move it along. The kids in the back, the daughter's texting all her friends, so she doesn't really even care, except that, come on. And the son, it gets excited because it's a new car and it's got a cool engine. He's like, God, burn this guy, smoke this guy. Let's just, leave him in the dust and all that stuff but not Jason. Because I wanted you to know a little about Jason, who frankly is me channeling my dad a little. Because my dad was a very mellow guy. He was a lovely guy. He was somewhat introverted, but he was very, very kind and always there for me. We were really close. But if my dad were getting tailgated, never would stress. He never stressed about anything. And I have Jason sort of inhabit that kind of vibe. And he says something like, everybody relax. I have a right to enjoy the drive. I'm a scenic route kind of guy. And so that sort of defines who he is. And then when everything goes to hell and their whole life is turned upside down, Jason has to learn to kind of come out of his comfort zone. I'm not going to tell you how or why, but that's how he's going to grow in this book. And part of it, you talk about, this is the secret sauce, kind of as it is. What works? What am I doing behind the scenes? Because one of the great things about the reviews of this, they say fast paced, riveting, all that stuff. I love all that stuff. That's not easy to do, and I'm proud that I did it. But part of what I want this to do is not work only as a thriller, but to work at sort of a story of a family in crisis, because my themes, just like in Eternal, are family and love and justice. And I still thematically carrying those themes through and what happened to the Bennetts. So here's a perfect example of the kind of thing I did in this novel that maybe when you read it, you'll note. I tell you, for example, that Jason is a little like me in that he's I'm from Pennsylvania. I actually live on a farm. Pennsylvania, the rolling hills, that's really true. Like, there's a lot of terra firma out here. And Jason is very much a terra firma kind of guy, as he says at one point, or he thinks. But then what happens is when he's moved into the witness relocation program, the first 6 months are an application process, and they take him to Delaware, a Delaware beach town. And I went down there and I did the research and drove around. You can see those films, the video I took on my website. And basically, I thought this is interesting because this area of Delaware is actually the coastline, and there is tidal marsh along the coastline. It's actually so that all of a sudden he's in a beach town, which he's not used to, and the tides go in and out right under his house practically. And so the ground beneath his feet is all of a sudden uncertain. He's surrounded by water. There's plants he can't identify. There's bird noises he doesn't know. And part of this happened, when you go, where do you get your research? One day when I went down to, I got the idea when I was down there. I was like, oh, this will work thematically, because I'm trying to underline for the reader, his sense of, I don't belong here. I'm out of place. Everything's different. So while I was standing there, and I did the research during the early days in the pandemic, I didn't have, pre-vaccine. I'm standing on the beach. And if you remember those days early on where there was this news stories about nature is taking over. Well, it really was like that, because this area that I used, I made up the name of the town, but it's near a nature preserve in Delaware. And there was so much nature. There were seabirds, there was squawking, there was buzzing, there were things crawling. And while I was on the beach, a blue heron, which I had read about, and I have it in a book over there that has a picture, but I've never seen in person, flew right over my head. I don't know where it came from. The wings were flapping. It was the most beautiful. It was like nature can sometimes take your breath away kind of thing. It was like, holy God, what is that? The wings, I described it in the book and I used it. All of that is there for a reason, because Jason feels so profoundly out of place. And what I kind of wanted to say is sort of to underline the background is that, luckily, since I've been doing this for 30 years, I have a fair amount of sources. So I started looking around in the FBI. I actually contacted a guy. I have somebody who worked in WITSEC. And I said, listen, I want to write about this. And I know a lot of people get their ideas about real life and criminal procedure and legal procedure and everything from fiction. And I personally take it as a mark of integrity. Like if it has my name, it's the fictions. There's fiction, but the underlying facts are true. And you can take that to the bank. Eternal is definitive on the period. That's all there is to it. And so, but it's interesting because the witness protection program, if you may know, was designed basically for organized crime. It was designed to get a witness who would be a criminal, a confederate, a co-conspirator, and get him to testify against his previous co-conspirators. That means the person you're putting away in witness protection is a criminal. So, this is not a normal family, vis-a-vis, not to make value judgments, obviously, God forbid, that they don't have the connections. Basically, as my friend tells me in witness protection, a person like a criminal who is in witness protection, A, you're saving his life. B, you're giving him a stipend. He's getting to start over. And you know what? He's not on Facebook. An American family with 2 kids who are teenagers is on Facebook. A mom is on Facebook. The dad has a business. Everybody's online and everybody's connected because we're all so connected these days. And when you put a family like that in witness protection, that's what I wanted to look at. Because it's very clear that, and the amazingly about the witness protection program, it's never lost anybody. No one never, they have been protected, everybody who's entered the program. They have very strict rules you have to follow, which if you read the book, you'll learn. And if you follow the rules, you're basically safe. But what I wanted to explore is not the threat that's extrinsic, not the bad guys coming in, but more the threat that's intrinsic, the threat from within, the mental health of this family. What does it do to this family to be cut off from everybody? And I don't mean just like in the pandemic where you can only talk on FaceTime. I mean, because think about your connections. I live alone, but I'm still super connected up. I talk to my daughter all the time. That was my brother on the phone. I text. I'm on this. If I go away for a couple days, I have a dog sitter. I have a chicken sitter. Everyone knows this is where I'm going to be. Here's the numbers. You do that too, right? The key thing we do is tell somebody where we're going and that we are going. Well, in what happened to the Bennetts, none of that happens because none of that can happen. You cannot inform your friends or even your family, your extended family, that you're going into the witness protection program. So my best friend would search the earth for me. I have some tight girlfriends. They'd be all over the Chester County Police. They'd be calling everybody. And Lucinda in the book, for example, she has to leave her mother. Her mother's in assisted living for memory care. Lucinda's there every week, if not more. All of a sudden, she can't go. What would it be like if you were them? Conversely, because the novel looks at it both ways, what's it like for the people on your street if all of a sudden you're not there one day? What about if your neighbors are gone one day? You go, wait a minute. They always walk that beagle. They walk the beagle. I walk my dogs basically the same time of day. I see the same people on the road. How you doing? How you doing? What if your recycling's not out? What if your newspapers pile up? What if your mail starts to overflow? How do we deal with these things? And what starts to happen in what happened to the Bennetts is that the friends go crazy. And I'm not going to give you too much, but there's even another factor, which is I love that we live in these times that are so connected up. And I love being online. I love books, as you can see. That's just my research books. I have signed books in a family room. I love books, but I also love being online. And I go, what if, you can't do any of that? What if you can't have any of those connections? And a lot of people do. I used to read crime fiction. I love crime fiction. But one of the cool things online is now there's a thing called true crime bloggers. You may have read about that, or you see the shows, Lifetime, Dateline, everything like that, and I kind of love this actually, that they're just normal people, non-expert. They're not law enforcement, But if someone they love, for example, is murdered, is the victim of crime, they're going to start to investigate it. They start getting records. They start filing Freedom of Information Act requests, right? Wouldn't you? I mean, God bless the police. They try, but they have limited budgets. It's very clear in this novel. The FBI has a limited budget. I love that we live in an era that is more open and inclusive that way. And so all of that comes into play in this novel. All of it matters. And this family, to a certain extent, you sort of see them operate. And I like to think it has layers. Lucinda, for example, the wife in this book and the mother, is a really good daughter to her mother and a really good mother to her children. She also has a job as a photographer. I wanted to explore images of truth. And in a way, I do that through her. And I do it through Jason too, and I'll tell you how. Lucinda is a family photographer, because even though we're all our own family photographers, a lot of us still get a family portrait taken. I got one of my dog. I got one of a pony. Okay, that's how crazy I am. And I love that idea. And as a photographer, she knows what it's like to make pictures of a family. She knows what it takes to how many 30 shots you get before you get the good one. It's like the experience you have when you take your holiday card, all the rejects. I took my holiday card, turned out great. It's my 4 dogs, all looking one way. It took like 900 pictures and their little Santa hats and their little, it was crazy, but we have all been there. But to a certain extent, you know it yourself when you post something. What's the truth about the image? Is there truth in the image? How much of you is reflected in that image? Because we know more and more that varies, right? And then there's people who Photoshop it. Well, that's clear. Or there's people who falsify it. So, and I like that to explore that through Lucinda and also partly through Jason, because I haven't told you what Jason does for a living, but what Jason does is he's a court reporter. He's an elite court reporter. He owns a court reporting business. And I love that because as a lawyer and as someone who's been an adjunct law professor and a paralegal, before that stuff, I know that there's a lot of people who serve justice, really, who don't get a spotlight. And especially in American fiction, we're always like, who's the big time lawyer? Billions, right? Who's the big DA? Who's that? And I wanted to explore 2 things. First, through Jason, this notion of truth. Because the court reporter, and I've taken depositions and defended depositions and been in proceedings, friendly with a lot of court reporters. The court reporters always know who's lying in the room. Somebody's always lying in the room, whether it's the lawyer, whether it's the witness. The court reporter never lies. The court reporter makes the accurate record and actually warrants that it's true. So I wanted you to think about the levels of truth and the levels of deception. And also, what was my other point about that? It was about court reporting. It wasn't about truth. Oh, I know. There was also that I wanted to shine a spotlight on that because to a certain extent, when I started to say about billions and bigger and better, whenever you write, I'm a writer, right? So whenever I'm writing, like what happened to the Bennetts, and I have a male main character, part of what you're doing in the process is you're trying to define what is a hero. What are the limits of this guy and what are his powers? And I love that idea because I love popular culture. I was at the Spider-Man movie, not just one Spider-Man, 3 Spider-Men show up. We are and you have to say to yourself, why does a Spider-Man movie, Marvel movie, and I've seen them all, I love them. How is that different from a movie like Coda, which I also love? Also, to a certain extent, about limits of power, a family's death. Why does Spider-Man make $500 million? And partly I say to myself, we're very interested in power. We're trying to understand what superpowers are. And I wanted to a little bit open that up to a conversation for a man like Jason, who's a terrific guy, like husband material big time. I have a crush on him. Too bad he doesn't exist. He is a wonderful father. He's a great boss. He runs his own business, but because he perceives himself as a scenic route kind of guy, he isn't really aware of his superpowers, and he has them. And for him to save his family when everything goes to hell, he has to grow, he has to change. And a little bit, I'll just end this too with this sort of thought. In Eternal, I learned this from writing Eternal, but also thinking about what it's like to go through war, or in fact, any hardship, right? In a way, we're going through it now. Pandemic, world war. We're watching a war happen. We don't know what we feel. We don't know if we should intervene. We've lost people. We have sick people. It's been really difficult. And what I learned from writing Eternal is that when you're entering a period that's historically significant, you don't know it, right? We didn't know last March that we were going to enter a pandemic that would last a year, 2 years. I mean, I remember getting groceries delivered, which is weird enough. But then I remember getting them in, and Francesca came home, and we had rubber gloves, and we wiped down like celery. I mean, because that we thought we had to. And I was afraid. I was to save my life, to save hers. And I came to it when I was writing Eternal, that if you read Eternal, I'm not giving anything away, but there's one part of Eternal that occurs at the end. And there's a character named Maria who has never spoken up. I've never had this happen in a book. You could get fired for stuff like this. I'm just telling you, because she's never said more than 2 words in the book. And then at the end, she's got to give a speech. I was like, Lisa, this is trouble. But then I said, just lean into that. She has never given a speech because she never had to. Like she says, she's an Italian woman of that time. She's always in the kitchen, whether it's in the kitchen of her little restaurant or in the kitchen of her house. And she said, I'm a cook. I'm just a cook. And every night I open my refrigerator and I know what I want to make, but I don't have all the ingredients I want. I don't have all the ingredients I need. She says this at a wedding feast when she wishes people she loved were there and they're not. She's looking around the table and feeling that bittersweet feeling that we all feel as we get older, that you've lost people and you miss people and you don't have everybody you need and you don't have everything you need. But she says to herself, what can I make with what I have? And I thought, that kind of works, because that's essentially a way that a woman like that would formulate, how do I survive? And a little, to sum up, that's kind of what happens in What Happened to the Bennetts. Because Jason has to look at this situation and go, I have to get this family through this. My family's falling apart. What can I make with what I have? What can I do to help us survive? And maybe that's what a hero is. Maybe a hero is just a guy who solves a problem for his family. That's the kind of layers of what's behind What Happened to the Bennetts. I really hope you read it. I think you will love it. I'm very proud of it. And listen, Drew, thank you so much for letting me talk on and on and on today. And I would love to open it up to any kind of questions you have, because I'm here.
Yeah. So if you are watching the live stream right now and you want to ask Lisa a question, I'm already seeing them come in. Type your questions into the live stream chat, and I'll relay them to Lisa. While that happens, I want to share with you the first couple comments that we got, which, as I read through them, something occurred to me I thought was really heartwarming. So Susie Baldwin was checking in from Seattle to say that she loved your books. Wendy Carroll from Michigan is on chapter 60 of What Happened to the Bennetts, and she loves it. And what's crazy is I think about it, you've got the West Coast, with Seattle. You got the middle of the country with Michigan. We're here in Pennsylvania. You have literally got people coast to coast who are here to talk with you about your book and share how much it means to them to get to read another one. So it was comments I was seeing, and it occurred to me, oh my gosh, what a wonderful thing.
That is a wonderful thing. And thank you both for weighing in and your support. And, look, we're all making lemonades, whatever it is. We're making limoncello, really. But I appreciate that. It's not the kind of, I'm sad that I can't tour. Those of you who have seen me on tour, especially Town Book Center, we always have such incredible signings there. I think there's pictures of my signing there on my new newsletter. I love the store, and we always hug everybody and have a great time. And now we drink wine because that's a wine bar. Mm-hmm. So, it's sad that we can't, but this has its different advantages, which is that everybody can come. So I'm glad you all did.
Absolutely true. All right, we've got, let's see, some more comments. R.L. Herskowitz from Boca Raton is checking in, grew up in South Jersey, loves your stories. Lynn Hanneman This is a book that deserves a second read. The first pass is so intent on the. I was so intent on the fast-moving plot that it's not possible to fully appreciate all the emotional elements. And then, of course, Deb, with "What can I make with what I have" is the quote for the 21st century. I think that's very true.
No, that's great to say.
Couple of questions here.
Okay.
All right, from Elena, or Elena, if I mispronounce your name, I apologize. Will you ever do your in-person book group visits?
Well, we used to have a book club before the pandemic.
Yep.
For 13 years, as Town Book Center always sold the books. At my house, which is a farm, and there were like 500 people each on a Saturday and another 500 on a Sunday. I love doing that. We cannot do it with the pandemic. I just couldn't. I would never forgive myself if anyone got sick. Mm-hmm. I just would. So until we're absolutely sure, we're not gonna do that. But that said, let me point out something. If you read this book in your book club, and this is only for book clubs, give me 2 seconds to explain this to you. If you read What Happened, not you, Drew, I mean everybody. If you read this, What Happened to the Bennetts in your book club, you can go to my website and apply, and you can be entered in a contest to win a special Zoom for your book club only with me. And you can ask me any questions, and we'll talk, and we'll have fun. If you don't win that, you can enter a big thing, which is not a contest. You're automatically in to have a big book club party with me. Are you sick of me yet? Wait, there's more. And if you don't have a book club, I don't want you to be left out, because I'm single and I'm not in a book club. And I hate when they're like, 4 book clubs. And you're like, book club. We have made a book club, and it is called the A Cappella Book Club, which means without accompaniment. So if you are a solo or a cappella, follow the directions, but you take a picture of yourself holding the book, send it in, and we will have you're in the book club. You are in the a cappella book club, and I will talk to you. So I think that answers the question. We're doing everything we can to bring the book club to you as opposed to bring you here.
That's a great answer. I don't think anyone could say anything bad about wanting to keep people.
Trying my best, folks.
Yeah. And by the way, it's most of what's coming is just compliments for you. People love your hair. They want to bottle your energy. I mean, it's wine, right? It's Prosecco or a little. No.
I played straight. I get all sleepy now. This is how I am.
Good.
I'm actually excited. That's why. It's just this is a super nice thing.
It's good. So we got a question from Susie here. What was your hardest character to write? I'm about halfway through. It is riveting. And I went to your a cappella event last year. It was so much fun.
Oh, thank you, Susie. I think these characters are in such a stew. I'll show you something that I had a hard time with all of them, because I felt like, where is it? I felt like I felt bad for them, and I also felt that they have to. I was going to show you this because this is the audiobook that I was listening to today. It was wild, but I mean, I was listening, and it reminded me of how I'm reading it and writing it, and they're in such a stew that I felt for them, each of them, even though they're different people, and even though at times there's conflict between them. And I don't want to give anything away, but it's crisis can bring people together, or it can drive them apart. As you know, if you live in the United States of America, I am really hoping. I want people to come together. This family wants to come together. People need each other. I think that's why we don't do well in isolation. I think that's why we seek out things like this. And I've listened to more Zooms, and I've gone on webinars that I never would have gone to because I couldn't leave the house. But anyway, connection is something we all desire. And secretly, if I can just say this, I think a book is the best form of connection there is. Because when you read a book, I don't have to demonstrate everything, but you're like sitting there and it's you in the book. And if I write it in an open-hearted enough way, which is kind of my job, and I actually love it and feel lucky to do it, that if I tell it like emotionally true, I've said this quote before from Francis Ford Coppola. He says, the guy who directed The Godfathers, he said, "Nothing in my movies ever happened, but all of it is true." You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. He's going to do something emotionally true. And when you really go emotionally, like, what is it like to lose someone? What is it like to be away from your home? What is it like to be in a crisis? And you have to really plumb that in yourself and then make yourself write it down and be really weird and vulnerable about it. And if you do that, then people connect with it. And that's why books are magical. That's really why. More than any other form, because even I love movies too. But when you watch a movie, it kind of sweeps you away a little. But a book does something different because you have to bring so much yourself. You have to bring your imagination to it. You know, I kind of learned that a long time ago when I was writing a book, and I had the book out, and it's a dumb story, but I was doing a library fundraiser, and it was a Benny Rosato book, and somebody came up to me and said, "Oh, I know this about Benny and that about Benny, and this is how she looks," and this, and I was like, I hadn't put any of that in the book. Like, this reader was telling me about my own character. And then I said, you know, that's good. She came to play. She is bringing her imagination, and we are meeting in the middle. And if you really think that's true, and I happen to know that's true, then it follows logically from it that really no book is actually written until you have read it. And that each book is therefore different person to person because everybody perceives it a different way. And everybody does. Like, I've been in 30 years. I get email all the time, answers as much as I can. It's an amazing, amazing thing that books do. And that's why I'm so happy and proud to not only write them, but read them like crazy. And I know that Drew is very proud of this amazing independent bookstore. And I really, really hope you support it.
Well, thank you. She says, thank you so much for the answer. 2 quick questions from Renee. Where do we send the acapella book club photo? And do you usually listen to your own books or just this one?
So if you want to know any of this contest stuff, go on the website, because I don't even know offhand, but it's all there and very clear because people other than me write that kind of stuff. And that we got that. And the second question, I love books in all their forms. And when I am writing, I actually read the whole book out loud while I'm writing it. Because I go, oh, that you hear the sentence sounds funky. Just like when I'm talking to you, I go, oh, that sounds stupid. Or, you know, like when you talk to a good friend or a therapist, you know, you hear yourself saying that and you go, oh, wow, that must be how I feel because I said that thing, right? So when I'm writing a book, I say the sentence out a lot of times to make sure the sentence sounds good. You know, just in terms of process, Hemingway says, write drunk, edit sober. Haha, but that's what I do, not drunk. But I basically write the whole book out, and I don't have an outline. So if you say, do you know how it ends? I say, no, I don't even know how it middles. When this book, what happened to the Bennetts? I go, what if this happened? What would happen next? Then what would happen after that? And what would that feel like? And how would they deal? And so you basically build the book that way. So this is a long way of saying I love audiobooks too, because I always feel like the audiobook is the second time the story is told because I read it out loud the first time. And this audiobook, I'm lucky enough because I've been at this so long and you guys have been so supportive that I get to pick my audiobook readers. And Eternal was read by Cassandra Campbell and Eduardo Ballerini because they're both male and female parts. And I was so, just thought Eduardo Ballerini was so good. And he's a golden voice. They both are actually. That I said, please, 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 can I have him again? And so he, since What Happened to the Bennetts is all in Jason Bennett's viewpoint, he read it and it's stunning. And it's not, this, I swear to you, this is not even false modesty, which I can also do, but this is not that. Because when I'm listening to it, I'm hearing the emotionality. He's an actor too. So you hear the emotionality that he brings to this role and how he delineates, you know, a thought of Jason's versus something he says, or how he does Lucinda's voice. You know, he just sounds great. And there's such emotionality and drama and pace in this book. And so I always listen to my audiobooks. I care very much. I'm quality control. This is the quality control department. I have say in the cover. I have say in the font. I get approval of everything. I want it to be as awesome as it can be. And I have a great publisher in Putnam who's, you know, really supportive of that, which is great.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So I'm going to limit it to just 4 more questions from everybody because otherwise I know you'll stay here all night, but at some point someone will call me and go, Lisa had to leave. You can't make her stay all night. And I'll go, I'm not making. No, so we're going to do 4 more questions, guys, not counting this one because this one was here from before I said that. This is from Jill. Jill wants to know, how did you decide to have Jason tell the story as opposed to Lucinda on Chapter 7 and loving it?
That's a really good question. And I have to say, I'm not sure I know that answer. I think a little maybe because I had been seeing these Marvel movies, and I think a little also because I had been, I really liked some of the male characters in Eternal. And, the first 20 years of my life, which were about 20 books, I wrote, I think, only women main characters. Because really, that was my secret goal. Is like, we need to see Nancy Drew in the driver's seat again. And we were kind of second banana, especially in whatever crime fiction is called. There was just a lot of women secondary characters, like the guy doing fun stuff and then the girl. And so it was like, and I also honestly wasn't sure I could write a male main character because you got to know a lot about men, and I'm divorced twice. And then I said, well, let's know about men. There was just 2 that well, anyway, let's not go there. But I was like, thing 1 and thing 2, bye-bye. But I was like, you certainly know your dad. And I certainly know men. And I kind of love them. And I was like, I wanted to explore this. I think I wanted to think more about heroism. And I wanted to do that through the eyes of a man, because I do think I'm a feminist, and I do think women, there's definitely sexism. But I also think men get a bum rap too. That a man like Jason doesn't get the credit he deserves, which a little my dad was like that. My dad didn't realize how important he was. Even as of his generation, he was told to be bigger, stronger, all these things. And he was just a great guy and a great father. And that really is a remarkable, heroic achievement. So that's what I really wanted to explore. I never thought about it until that question, though. So thank you.
Yeah. And that keys into the next question really, really well. Which is from Blair. Blair says, saying you use your imagination, are you finding it easier to write a male character this time?
Yes, I am. And maybe I'm thinking about men way too much. And not Bradley Cooper, so I won't make a Bradley Cooper joke. I think it is, and I think I have to really, I love kind of exploring that. I really think it, and I really think it's important. Also the notion of fatherhood, like especially with Francesca, these humorous books I write, which is a Sunday column, as you pointed out, and by the way, is on my Facebook page every Sunday morning. And thank you to Town Book Center, because you guys have been so supportive of those books that Francesca and I write together, and you can get them at Town Book Center too. That I've talked a lot about mothers and daughters, but interestingly, not a lot about fathers and daughters. And I was close to my father, super close. I was probably a daddy's girl. And this is an exploration of the importance of fathers. So I think there was something in that too. Now that Blair asks, look at these geniuses.
I know, right? It's wonderful.
Right? I'm telling you.
All right, we got time for one more question from the audience. So if whoever gets it to me first, I'm going to ask yours. While you type, though, I'm going to ask you a question that I've been thinking about, which is timing. So when is this set? Is this kind of in our time? And if so, how are you handling COVID is a thing and it exists? Does it exist in your world that you've written here?
Yeah, it kind of doesn't.
Okay.
Because when I wrote it, I didn't know if it would still be around. And I said, that's kind of irrelevant right now to this. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to remind you of it. I just was like, you know what? Books allow us to have that time. And I know we're going to get back to that time. And I didn't want the book to be dated that way.
No, I think it's so much of what I read and see. It's, being produced now and is in our time, so to speak, is makes the same choice. They're like, no, this is a moment and it will not be how we live forever. And I think that's a great way to look at it.
Good, thank you.
Yeah. One last question, which is sort of our standard, but what are you reading that you're really enjoying right now?
Oh, I read all the time. I'm reading a lot of nonfiction now, but there is something I recommend people probably have it underneath here. So I could probably make I'm reading a book called The Florios of Sicily. Mm-hmm. I'm actually rereading it because I'm writing another historical. And it's called Sacred, and it's about the 1800s Sicily and the rise of the mafia. Yeah. I know, it's kind of fascinating. Well, again, I'm looking at law and justice, and in a lawless place like Sicily of the 1800s, where is justice? Why does this happen? So I'm gonna get the book instead of which this is like a bad idea.
You're okay. You're doing great. There we go.
Well, because it's called The Florios of Sicily by Stefania Alci. And I see what I do. I'm like, there's parts I underline. I love that. I'm like a big dork that way. I guess I better put it up again. But I think that's a really terrific book that really hasn't gotten much attention. If you're looking for kind of up and coming author, I definitely recommend her, and I'm sure you have it. Otherwise, I read so widely in crime fiction. I've got some wonderful blurbs for this. Megan Abbott, Alifair Burke, Lisa Gardner, Riley Sager, Robert Dugoni, David Baldacci, Harlan Coben, Chris Bojalian. These are all, I read everybody.
It's wonderful, yeah.
I read everybody great.
Yeah. All right, so now I've got to be shameless real quick for 20 seconds and talk about the bookstore, which Lisa's done a wonderful job of not making me be the one who's got to bring it up, but I'm doing it anyway. So if you like this show and you went, oh my gosh, I got to read the latest book, I gotta read what did happen to the Bennetts, I want to know, or hey, those humor books sounded pretty good, I want to read those, or any other books, or you just want to support a local bookstore, you can come shop with us in person. We are located here in Collegeville, Pennsylvania. We're right across the street from the largest Wegmans in the country, humble brag. If you are not comfortable being out in public yet, if you're not local to Pennsylvania, if you prefer to do your shopping online, you can also shop online with us at townbc.com. That's TOWN as in Nike, E as in Echo, B as in Bravo, and C as in Charlie.com. And if you want the audiobook, we can also help you there. If you come into the store, ask us about it. There's a thing called, Libro FM, and you can get audiobooks that'll support a local bookstore as opposed to certain other large international media conglomerates. So thank you so much, Lisa, for being here. Thank you all for being here. And I'll have a wonderful night, everyone.
Drew, thank you so much. And thank you, everyone. Stay safe.
All right. Take care, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.